plural mongooses, Tarmogoyf, and a main deck Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, the singleton Scavenging Ooze is unusual to see without some green Senzients or something, but it certainly works out fine generally as a fourth Tarmogoyf. Moving over to Mike McKay's deck list. He has, among his more interesting cards, a singleton main deck Life from the Loam, which is actually a pretty big player in a matchup against Rug, as Wasteland is one of the ways that they can certainly attack you, and Wasteland is also one of the best ways you can attack them.
Yes.
Looks like we have Mike, I assume, taking a mulligan, while Justin appears to have kept.
Justin also playing the often maligned main deck Taiga. It is the logic behind the Taiga is if you have Taiga, Volcanic, and Tropical, you can't be wastelanded off of any of your colors, as opposed to the common scenario where you have 2 Trops and a Volcanic, or vice versa, and then you're much more susceptible to wasteland.
Yeah, the big concern is getting wastelanded on Tropical specifically, because then you can no longer cast your green threats, which are the most important ones to put into play. It's very unlikely you can kill your opponent with just Delver of Secrets after something like turn 4. So a lot of people, they play the Taiga. Personally, I actually prefer a Breeding Pool if that's the route you're going to go. Right. Accomplishes basically the same thing, but you don't wind up with a Taiga in your deck filled with Spell Pierces and Dazes and Ponders and Brainstorms and Thought Scours and Spell Saves.
That is the problem with the Taiga, is that you will occasionally draw a Taiga, and that doesn't facilitate playing a lot of the spells in the deck.
Yeah.
But it does give you some amount of wasteland protection in corner case scenarios.
Sure. The surgical extraction strategy against Rug Delver's lands has kind of fallen out of vogue, though, I think. It was enjoying a brief heyday. Like, I think the first time someone did it, everyone kind of jumped on, wow, that's sweet, I'll just get him every time.
I believe Jonathan Joe popularized that line of play during the Legacy Open. He won a couple years back.
Oh, well, there you go. That was the Las Vegas Legacy Open, I believe. Right?
Maybe. I don't want to claim that Jonathan was first to market with this, but I think that he was one of the first to do it in kind of a high-profile situation. Sure. Mike McKay, after his mulligan, opens up with a Verdant Catacomb, finding a Badlands, a fairly clear signaling of Jund, or perhaps some sort of Loam strategy.
Yeah. Not a lot of non-Jund colored decks playing Badlands these days. Even most Goblins builds have tended to go to red-green, or even red-white, as opposed to the popular Cabal Therapy versions we saw in years past.
And with Team Italia on the wane, that really only leaves Sam Black's zombie deck as the last remaining bastion of Badlands.
Mike leads out on Deathrite Shaman via that Badlands. Pretty strong turn 1. Justin, will he Lightning Bolt it, or will he play something else? I would be pretty inclined to Lightning Bolt it. Obviously, the threat of DeLeon the Veil or various other terrible cards coming down on turn 2 is a pretty big deal.
Yep. You can always play your creature leader, but the damage that Deathrite does may not be able to be undone, so best to err on the side of clearing that out.
Big change in the matchup with the printing of Deathrite Shaman, as now this situation can be forced. Previously, Rug Delver would be free to just deploy a turn 1 threat without a care in the world.
Yep.
Looks like he's fingering that Lightning Bolt. Probably going to send it. Well, he has a Spell Pierce. He may be feeling the temptation of getting greedy.
He might try to trap here.
Yeah. Thing is, if you want to Spell Pierce a Liliana of the Veil, you can just bolt this Deathrite Shaman now and Spell Pierce the Liliana of the Veil later.
Well, the biggest concern is the possibility of him to Torak.
That's also fair.
Bloodstained Mire sacrificed.
Certainly a case of, I prefer to deal with generally what's right in front of me. I'm a simple man.
Yeah. It does not get that much more complicated than opponent had creature I could kill with Lightning Bolt, therefore I targeted it with Lightning Bolt.
Careers have been built on less.
Yes.
Mike fetching, what's his turn 2 going to be? I see that he does have a Liliana the Veil, I believe. Looks like he has a Dark Confidant for turn 2, though. Justin's hand, on the other hand, has Tarmogoyf, Delver of Secrets, the Spell Pierce we discussed, and I'm not sure what the other card is. It's either a Brainstorm or a Daze alongside some lands.
So the way the way that Mike's hand is constructed here, Justin would have been much better served not bolting here, because he would have been able to bolt the Dark Confidant, probably the more threatening of the two creatures, or Spell Pierce Liliana had Mike gone down that road. Can't really fault him for bolting the Deathrite Shaman, but the structure of Mike's hand made it randomly a poor play.
Mm-hmm. Well, now he's going to hold open a blue mana and play Delver. This gives him access to Spell Snare and Spell Pierce. This is also a rarely seen matchup. Lands in front of spells and lands beside spells squaring off. Not a configuration I'm used to seeing oppose one another.
We can finally settle once for all what is the second best thing to be doing. Wooded Foothills, which was revealed to the Dark Confidant, the land for Mike.
Looks like he's going to lead Thoughtseize rather than just jam the DeLeon into a potential Daze or Spell Pierce. And Thoughtseize slips underneath both of Justin's counterspell measures. Justin decides to brainstorm a response. Curious what he's going to hide. My suspicion is his Tarmogoyf will be one of those cards.
Yep. Probably put a spell on top to ensure that he flips with his Delver.
He would ideally put a cantrip so that he can just cantrip his way into the Goyf and play it as well. I think that's probably what you want to be doing, but it doesn't look like he found a cantrip. I think I see just like 3 lands, a Tarmogoyf, a Nimble Mongoose, a Spell Snare, and a Spell Pierce.
It looks like he wants to hide his creatures, actually.
Yeah, I think he's just going to hide both creatures and then show off the counterspells. He's going ahead and taking the 2 damage off before he shows the grip, but that's fine. And yeah, it does look like we have 3 lands, Spell Snare, Spell Pierce.
So, pretty interesting by Justin here, not putting a spell on top, but his spells are so weak, and those 2 creatures that he left on top, Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf, so relatively powerful here that he's willing to sacrifice the Delver flip to ensure that his more valuable creatures are safe.
Yeah, he'll be sacrificing it for 2 turns as well, unless he decides to crack a Scalding Tarn after drawing one of his creatures. Not sure that I would be in the market for that particular choice. When we have 2 Scalding Tarns and now we have 4 cards in our graveyard, we're only 1 away from Threshold anyway. Might as well just keep the Nimble Mongoose in place. In fact, it looks like he put the Nimble Mongoose on top. Interesting.
Yeah. Fetch land and Nimble Mongoose.
Alright, he's recalibrated.
Deathrite Shaman. Revealed the Dark Confidant. And another Dark Confidant on the draw.
Do you attack with Dark Confidant if you're Mike McKay here?
Well, the problem is that you know about the snare in the hand, so you can't really value your second Tarmogoyf very high.
Oh, sure. I'm thinking you attack because if he blocks with Nimble Mongoose, then you get to just Lily on the Delver and leave him on no pressure.
I think that's a reasonable line, but the problem is that because Justin didn't reveal a spell and then play Nimble Mongoose, it's a pretty safe presumption that the other card in his hand is another creature, so there is some risk to your Liliana being under duress the following turn.
Oh yeah, I think he should generally assume the top of Justin's deck is a creature, because the Nimble Mongoose was obviously the top this turn. So that's reasonable, but at the same time, if you get the opportunity to clear both of Justin's creatures out, I think that seems pretty reasonable. Like, would you want to be facing 3 creatures?
No, I think that's a totally reasonable one.
I guess the real question is whether you might want to just preserve the Confidant on defense and be able to potentially trade it with Delver of Secrets next turn.
Well, he is at 12, and
right.
There's some risk with the game going long, sitting back on this defensive Confidant. He may just want to cash it in now. It's done some good work. You have a Deathrite left over to rebuild your life total to attack the graveyard.
That's what I'm thinking. I just want to probably get the Confidant into the graveyard. He's already drawn me a few cards. If I can trade him with 1 more, that'll do. Liliana Resolves, almost certainly going to be an Edict right here.
I had to imagine we're sacrificing our Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, that card won't have 3 power next turn. The Nimble Mongoose actually will if we play our next Scalding Tarn. That'll be 7 cards.
I'm a little curious. If I was Mike, I think I may be willing to offer up this Confidant here.
You either offer it up or your plan is to chump block Mongoose when it attacks. I think those are your only real options, right?
You have so much inevitability going forward here that it's worth. I feel like it's worth just preserving your life total. Justin's almost certainly not going to win this game if it goes short. Or rather, if the game goes on for
he's very
a long time.
Right now. Yeah. You really just want to keep pressing that advantage.
Right.
Here we see the Nimble Mongoose attack. Justin wisely waiting to see what Mike actually does before he decides to start cracking those lands.
I don't know if that was... If Mike's still mulling over his block here, or...
I assume the Nimble Mongoose is headed after the Liliana right now as well. It's not actually that big of a threat to Justin, but I don't see going for the life total being correct when the edict against the Nimble Mongoose is one of the few ways to actually get rid of it. Mike declines to block, doesn't want to throw away his Dark Confidant. I think that's probably incentivized by the fact that he can use Deathrite Shaman to keep that Nimble Mongoose shrunk.
Yep.
If Justin continues to brick on spells. However, a 5/6 is probably going to warrant the chump block unless we manage to draw an Abrupt Decay or something similar.
Confidant reveals. Bloodbraid Elf.
Bloodbraid Elf knocks us down to 8, but it's a big card.
And Punishing Fire the draw to go along with the Grove of Burnwillows in his hand.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty good. I think I would go with just casting our Bloodbraid Elf this turn. For starters, leaving open Deathrite Shaman, and then we'll untap and be able to go Punishing Fire, Punishing Fire. Mike doesn't play the Grove yet.
Finds his own Goyf.
That's a nice one. By holding the Grove, we can hold the Grove and just protect it from Wasteland, but then we're missing out on our Deathrite Shaman this turn, which I don't think we want to do.
This is gonna definitely warrant the spell snare now that is in that's in Justin's hand here.
He's fetching for his blue. Mike's Goyf is no more. This also actually puts Justin up to 8 cards in the graveyard, so the Deathrite Shaman can no longer remove Nimble Mongoose's threshold for a turn.
Yep.
Which is actually kind of relevant. We're probably going to be planning to throw Bloodbraid Elf into the Nimble Mongoose and Dark Confidant underneath the Tarmogoyf. He's confirming that the Bloodbraid Elf resolves. Given that we know every card in Justin's hand, that's definitely the case. He's going to remove a land. And it looks like he's planning to cast that Dark Confidant.
Well, some risky business here.
Yeah, that is bold, sir. I mean, obviously, I think that means we're definitely busting one of them. So that's probably his logic. I want to keep a Tarmogoyf in play and around, but if Justin just stops attacking, our Deathrite Shaman will actually run out of creatures in short order. There aren't that many. Yeah. There's only 2 creatures.
And if this is the path we were going to try to pursue, then I definitely would have offered up that Confidant for a trade earlier in the game. And now if I'm in Justin's position, I'm definitely just holding back. Ooh, he drew a Bolt.
Oh, if you draw a Bolt, it's pretty tempting to just pass turn, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some argument for bolting the Deathrite Shaman because that's going to recoup some life, but...
He has very few ways that you're aware of. Obviously, he doesn't know that Mike has a Punishing Fire. So I think I like passing turn or bolting the Deathrite Shaman. Those are both reasonable options. I might be more inclined to just hold.
Confidant reveals.
Yeah, we can't see the Confidant reveal. We'll go ahead and try and get that information soon.
Looks as though Mike fell to 6.
Justin biding his time, waiting for a moment. Looks like we have land and I think another Dark Confidant. Is that what I said? Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize and...
the Punishing Fire we knew he had. And Abrupt Decay. So he was at 8, so he revealed the Abrupt Decay. And then drew revealed land and drew a Thoughtseize.
Okay.
So he's not going to cast the Thoughtseize. The Abrupt Decay, however, pretty attractive. Abrupt Decay will enable him to kill the Tarmogoyf, which is one of the more dangerous creatures in play. However, he may want to actually spend some time Punishing Firing his own Dark Confidants, because their greatness is becoming costly.
Yes.
It's getting up there. The inflation on greatness is not great here. I think we probably just play our land and pass. We don't need to decay. It's not like it's going to get countered if we wait. And we don't really want Justin to know that we have this Punishing Fire to burn away our Dark Confidants with. I want to kind of leave him in the dark about that.
Yep. The Abrupt Decay also important because it just puts another creature in the graveyard, since a large part of Mike's plan here is going to have to be using that Deathrite Shaman to...
Yeah. Looks like he's considering an attack. If you're going to attack, you got to Abrupt Decay the Tarmogoyf first, which, yeah, he's going to go ahead and do that. I think that's fine.
That will resolve.
So now Mike going to go ahead and send for 3. I like that line fine. If the Nimble Mongoose attacks, we can just throw both of our Dark Confidants on it. No problem. We have the Punishing Fire and 1 Recursion along with the Deathrite Shaman activation, so probably Punishing Fire one of our Confidants away. Deathrite Shaman to gain 2 life, go to 8. Feel pretty safe from there.
Yep.
Justin draws a Force of Will. Not ideal.
He does have a 5th land, so...
He does. Primary issue being he's losing to the cards in play.
He's got a lot of time, though.
He does have some time. 18 life is a pretty reasonable number.
So what are the other expensive cards that Mike McKay can reveal to these Confidants here?
The big ones are Bloodbraid Elf and Liliana the Veil. That's as big as it gets. Everything other than those 2 cards is 2 or less. Tarmogoyf hits the Exile in the instep. And note that now that Justin is allowing Mike... If Justin allows Mike to untap, then his Bolt is officially, if it goes to the face, is not dealing the same amount of damage it would have if it just killed that Deathrite Shaman immediately.
Yeah, there's the... I mean, it's not entirely fair to look at that in that way, because Justin also had the opportunity to rip another Bolt. Yeah. Punishing Fire, good reveal for Justin. Redundant and knocks Mike down to 4.
He's going to be activating his Deathrite Shaman in response.
Yep.
Wise move. Wouldn't want to die to a Bloodbraid Elf off the top, although what Mike doesn't know is if he does reveal Bloodbraid Elf, he is in fact dead.
Yes.
2 Bloodbraid Elf off the top. I feel like he played these Confidants pretty greedily. I would have definitely gotten rid of one of these in the end step on the previous turn.
So that it's going to resolve.
Justin will go, or Mike, sorry, will go to...
Hit him a Torak.
Knocks him right back down to 4. Dancing on the razor's edge.
Draws a card. So his hand is 2 Punishing Fires.
A Hymn, a Thoughtseize, and 1 other card that we don't need.
Is it another Hymn? Yeah, 2 Hymns, 2 Punishing Fires, and Thoughtseize.
All right, well.
Greatness at an easy to quantify cost.
Yeah. Mike sends the team. This is aggressive.
Is he just dead on the way back?
Yeah, I think we must not. That must not be another Hymn if this is his play. Right?
Well, he may just assume that Justin's throwing a block out there. He also might not be playing around Lightning Bolt, is another thing, because he doesn't know that that's in Justin's hand. But
Justin, you would still risk dying to your own Dark Confidants on the next turn.
Yeah.
Like, this attack leaves him incredibly vulnerable.
Well, Justin is short of Threshold on board.
Sure. I still don't think... I still think you gotta leave 1 back.
He's gonna sacrifice.
Cracks. Does that get him back to Threshold?
I think that becomes the 6th card.
And then the Lightning Bolt to the face gives him Threshold.
I believe that's the case.
I assume that's what's about to happen. He's going to send a Bolt to the face, put Mike on 1. The Gnome Mongoose can eat something. I would probably just eat the Bloodbraid Elf, I guess.
I would just let this go through when you have Force of Will in your hand as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're gonna block, I would block Bloodbraid Elf over Confidant.
Yeah.
I as I said before, like I just wouldn't block. I just take this, hope those Confidants kill him on the way back. If nothing else, will even do the trick.
Because Mike's response basically has to be either...
Now we bolt the Deathrite Shaman. This is a little late to the party on that one. He does block the Bloodbraid Elf. Wow, I don't like this line at all. Now he's just all in on those Dark Confidants, killing Mike by themselves. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this line that we took.
Especially since Mike has the option of actually killing one of his Dark Confidants, or both, potentially.
You know he has the Punishing Fires. So you cast him, get rid of the Force Will? Yeah, I think Justin had the right idea here. He decided, you know, this is how I'm going to get the game. I'm going to use some burn in conjunction with those Dark Confidants, kill my opponent, but he wound up allowing Mike to get too much life with the Deathrite Shaman, and then right here, you know, kind of turned the moment.
He's going to Thought Scour himself.
On the upside, he's not dead to the next swing, so unless those Confidants just die, the pressure is off. He'll have more chances to top deck.
Let's see if Mike... I would assume he's going to kill one of these Confidants here, because I would much rather have one in play than two.
Yeah. He's going to do it this time. He's done being greedy, it looks like. Or is he... Okay, he is. Okay.
Yep.
Wasn't going to the head. Upstairs? Like, whoa, buddy. His Confidants have dealt us an average of like 3 damage apiece.
All right. Confidant, trigger.
Another
Hymnotorak. Now Bolt is again a live draw for Justin.
Yep. And just the Confidant remaining in play could be lethal to Mike very easily.
Another Thoughtseize drawn by Mike. A little too much to discard.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine the card in hand being anything but a land, but might as well throw that him out there.
Yeah.
I guess it could be Force of Will.
Stifle?
Stifle is a possibility.
Those are about the only cards, right? Stifle, Daze. Casts Delver of Secrets.
Well, this is actually not bad because it forces Mike to choose between killing the Delver with the mana that he has at the end of the turn, or killing his own Confidant.
I think he's going to kill the Confidant and then kill the Delver. That's definitely
What's his path to win the game, though?
I mean, draw a creature, and hopefully Justin doesn't draw Nimble Mongoose. Notice that Justin already drew a Nimble Mongoose, yes. But if he draws another one, that'll put Mike in a really dangerous spot.
Okay, so he's going to play a little conservatively here. Get rid of his own Confidant and hope for Liliana or Bloodbraid Elf to...
apparently we may have had an inaccuracy in the life totals. Mike, whom we thought should be at 2, is actually at 4. Not sure where that came up, but that changes things a little bit. For instance, I actually would have probably let my Confidant live on that turn, I think.
I don't know, he has a lot of... It's hard to know who's actually drawing better off the top of their deck at this point, right?
Like it's difficult, but I would much rather probably just get rid of the threat that's in play on my opponent's side and try and close the gap. We'd only be a couple turns away from victory. Well, you can't actually respond to it turning into a 3-2. It's a 3-2 now.
Yeah.
But we will be probably doing something before the days goes into the hand. Note that Justin, didn't play a Scalding Tarn on the turn where he Thought Scoured. This is a situation where he would have actually gotten paid off for putting that Scalding Tarn into play. Obviously, it's soaked to him, but if it was in play and the Delver revealed a card is useless as Daze, he'd be able to shuffle his library during his upkeep, get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike's still trying to find a way to really go about winning the game. He now has recurring Punishing Fire and can slowly burn Justin out, which is where he's at now. Also appears he's just drawing Tarmogoyf.
That's a pretty good way to win a game, I
Yes.
guess. I predict we cast Tarmogoyf.
Yeah. I think he's debating about whether or not he wants to him also with some of his mana, or if he just is better served using his mana to Punishing Fire.
Yeah. We know that there's a Daze up there. If Justin really feels that strongly about a Punishing Fire, I imagine we'll let it go. Once the Tarmogoyf is actually down, the game will probably end on the next turn. Because Mike is in fact at 4, as opposed to the 2 that we believed, Justin appears to be drawing to no outs, actually. Looks like a Spell Pierce. That can soak 1 Punishing Fire, but Mike has access to a multitude.
Punishing Fire at the end of the turn. Knocks Justin down to 7. Seeing if Justin has any
appears we may have another life total discrepancy, as should be going down 2-5 here, not at 4.
Assuming 9 was accurate, yes.
And that's assuming this Punishing Fire resolves. I think Justin drew a Spell Pierce, so we can actually counter it, but maybe waiting until the penultimate moment.
Attacks for lethal with the Tarmogoyf, and that's game. So Mike McKay takes game 1, and at 6-0-1, this is basically in essence a win-in for him.
Yeah, it's very likely a win-in. Whoever wins will most certainly be among the players with the highest tiebreakers, and likely able to draw with one of the actual undefeated players who spent this round drawing.
So what we got in the way of sideboard action here for Mike?
Yeah, moving over to the Jund sideboard, he has access to 3 Choke, which are not the worst against an all-blue mana base. But Rug Delver, obviously a deck that can deploy a number of threats and spells before Choke, so it's not as good as it is against a deck like Stoneblade or Bug necessarily, but still a valid choice. He also has access to an Umezawa Jitte. I think that card's okay. 1 Blood Moon, that's kind of spicy.
What's his basic land count like?
His own basic land count is just a Singleton Forest and a Swamp with 4 Bloodstained Mire and 4 Verdant Catacombs to fetch them. Reasonable. I don't think I'm that interested in the Blood Moon, though. The Choke is basically a Blood Moon where you don't have to go through any shenanigans to get it.
Sure, yeah. Well, although it's a little more susceptible to days, you can. Blood Moon is much closer to a harder lock than Choke is.
That's true.
On the other side, Justin's sideboard a little light for the matchup. He has 3 copies of Submerge, which are, I think they're okay here. I actually think that Submerge is a little overrated in some of the more attrition-oriented matchups, because if Mike is siding into anything, it's almost certainly more removal. And Submerge is awkward when your opponent's killing all of your guys. You want to be playing a tempo game with it. And if Mike's deck is doing its thing, it's hard to get that game plan going. That said, it's probably still worth bringing in. And that pretty much does it for cards you would want access to. You can bring in the 1 Surgical Extraction. He's seen Punishing Fire. It's reasonable to assume Loam could be in the picture, but really not a lot to bring in here.
I might be tempted to bring in 1 Rough Tumble. It kills a lot of the creatures in the Jund deck. It doesn't kill the most important one, which is Tarmogoyf, but it can handle literally every other creature that Mike might play, so I don't think I would want to ever overload. Like, drawing 2 is a nightmare, but drawing 1 might be okay. He also has Sulfuric Vortex, which, peculiarly enough, shuts off Punishing Fire Grove.
Yes. Yeah, that is a weird little wrinkle, right?
Yeah. Not a lot of people have realized that one before. In fact, I've seen a number of players on the Open Series, make the error of, with a Sulfuric Vortex in play, allowing their opponent to, use things like Batter Skull or Grove of the Burn Willows, which don't always conventionally think about with interactions with Punishing Fire. But
yeah, Sulfuric Vortex unfortunately lines up very poorly against Abrupt Decay, and is also just, the Jund deck can play effectively to the board. It's not playing a draw-go game, so...
Yeah, if you're more of a deck like Blue-Red Delver, where you're on the Lava Spike plan, then I think the Sulfuric Vortex plan is totally fine, because at least you'll usually get a shock out of it, even if they wind up Abrupt Decaying it. Right. And trading your 3-mana card for a 2-mana card and a shock is not the worst. And on the off chance you actually, line up correctly, can be nice.
I've stolen many a match I did not deserve on Sulfuric Vortex.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt whatsoever. Oh, I don't know. Sulfuric Vortex is also a fantastic card in Cube that I see going around pretty late. If you guys are ever playing the Magic Online Cube, it's one of the better cards for those red decks. You should probably be taking it a little higher.
The Punk Outs. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
Oh, showed up wanting to cast some 6-mana cards, eh?
I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry about this.
You and Luis both, from what I hear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Luis Scott Vargas also a big fan of the red deck in Cube.
Oh, anything, whatever is the closest equivalent to the, sock full of batteries beat down archetype in across all formats is what I generally gravitate towards.
That is a thorough beating.
Yes.
All I have running through my mind is just like a reel of sock and batteries beat down. I'm like, wow, this.
Yeah.
I'd much rather just see a Sulfuric Vortex in play. This is graphic. That was a really tight game, actually.
Yeah, no, that definitely shifted back and forth from Mike being in firm control to it looking like Justin had a chance to kind of steal it
Yeah,
on the
that
back
window,
of
I
Mike's
think.
Dark Confidants. I think that if Justin had picked a clearer path with that lightning bolt, I think he could have either initially firing it off on the Deathrite Shaman, or once you had sort of made your deal with the devil, waiting for the Dark Confidants to take effect. I think Justin could have stolen that first game.
I think that turn where we put our Nimble Mongoose in with the Bloodbraid Elf, if we, as we talked about, just take the damage, swing back, probably get it. It's possible he was a little frightened of going out a la Brian Kibler. He saw that punishing fire with the Dark Confidant. Maybe he's like, oh, I take 8, my opponent's just like bolt, punishing fire, I'm just suddenly dead.
Yep.
That's awful. Well, I guess I'll block. But even if that's a real concern, maybe hedging by blocking a Dark Confidant's better, even though that kind of goes against your plan. When you have access to the bolt and the attack from Nimble Mongoose, it's not the worst.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's attack there was so aggressive that it definitely signaled to Justin, if there's no blocks, that you're in some trouble.
Yeah, and we knew, looking at Mike's hand, it was actually just filled with discard spells and punishing fires. But Justin could very easily, think, oh man, he's about to play a Tarmogoyf, or something else that invalidates my Nimble Mongoose. It's just not going to be the attacker I thought it was. Might as well get value here, prevent 3 damage, trade it off. Kudos to Mike if that was part of his line, because it was a nice rep.
It was a very bold set of plays that he made over those couple of turns.
I like his moxie.
There's a hi Molly, I love you.
That's not the kind of moxie I generally encourage, but all right, let it fly.
Yeah. Now remove that from the screen.
On Mike's side, we have what looks like a land-heavy hand. Six of them, in fact, and I think that's a Dark Confidant from the Modern Masters.
Is the card all the way on the right a Bloodbraid or a land?
Oh yeah, I think you're right. It is a Bloodbraid. It looked like a land to me at first, but yeah, I think we gotta ship that.
Yeah, I like that laydown from Mike there.
Yeah, on the draw, that hand is definitely too slow. Even on the play, it's pretty debatable.
And and Justin's already showed Spell Snare in the first game too, so you're confident not even be good.
Apparently our director messaged the judge, get that off the table, courtesy of your instructions. How rude.
I was only half kidding. I was only half kidding. I'm sorry, Molly. I just try to get a joke in there.
We're on Mike's side, but
yeah, ultimately
we're here, to do a job. It's serious business.
Yeah, we
have suit coats to prove it.
Right. I have a receipt and everything. I can prove it. So again, Justin here at 6-1. A win here probably locks him up for an intentional draw, or possibly an intentional draw next round. Mike at 6-0-1. A win here probably means even a loss locks him for top 8.
If he wins, however, he'll 100% be paired against one of the players who just drew this round. There were 2 undefeated players in addition to Mike, so he'll definitely be paired against one of them next round if he wins here. Being able to draw 6-0-2 with them, they'll certainly be, I imagine, happy to draw, since they were happy to draw this round. Justin, however, has to entertain the possibility he might actually get paired down against a 7-1 who can't draw, who has worse breakers than his own, so it's a little sketchier for him. Both of them very likely to make the top 8 if they win this match, though.
Right.
That's what we're all here for, right? The top 8s.
Yes. The sweats. Mike picks up 6. Our spotter seems to also really be enjoying himself.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Turn 1 Delver of Secrets, that's pretty good. This is very similar to a play that we proposed on Above the Curve. Turn 1, dual land Delver of Secrets. Do you wasteland? Do you try and kill it with your lightning bolt? In our example, we had Swords of Plowshares. Lot of possibilities.
Well, fortunately, Mike has kind of the best of both worlds here, where he can play Deathrite Shaman. If this eats a daze, then that's fine. You still have your bolt, and if it doesn't, then you have all the mana in the world, where then you can start wastelanding and bolting in the same turn.
One of the differences in this query versus our example is also the presence of Abrupt Decay, which is a removal spell for the Delver that can never die.
I'm a big fan there of just leading off with the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, me too. The Swamp especially, making you immune to the return wasteland, very nice.
once you get out in front of Rogue Delver in terms of mana, it's much easier to play against their reactive elements. When you're trying to match them mana for mana, and you're trying to wasteland them early on in the game, then their dazes and pierces and snares become a lot more prohibitive. So I like Mike just trying to get his mana in place before deploying the rest of his action.
Rug Delver is a real impressive looking deck when it's ahead of you, stifling your lands, wastelanding you, attacking with turn 1 3-power creatures. When it's behind you, it looks significantly more scrappy.
Yeah.
not the powerhouse that we've become acquainted with. Forked Bolt handles the Deathrite Shaman.
That Forked Bolt is a... Let's see where that... There are 2 of in his main deck.
Interestingly, Justin led Tropical Island with Delver, which kind of restricted his plays with as far as wasting if he had wanted to leave that access open. But the fact that he has Nimble Mongoose makes it all make sense. You turn 1 the Tropical Island so that you can definitely play the Nimble Mongoose off of your land, depending on what your opponent does. The fact that it was a Deathrite Shaman required him to Volcanic Island and Forked Bolt.
A basic forest off the top for Mike there, which is excellent for a number of reasons. 1, it allows him to Abrupt Decay without playing into Wasteland, and 2, it gives him a really excellent setup for the Blood Moon that's in his hand as well.
Ooh, he has the Blood Moon?
He does.
That's exciting. That's a 1-of in Mike's sideboard, and fun-ofs. That's
yeah.
Those are the best kinds. Justin declines to reveal his Wasteland, and rightly so. Mike hasn't displayed a target for it, so no need to give things up just yet. And with a Scalding Tarn in play, when our Delver reveals another unfortunate card, we'll be able to shuffle it away.
Yep. Although, it looks like the coast is actually clear now. Of course, Mike doesn't know this, but it appears that Justin's hand is just Wasteland and a couple of bolts. If he sticks this Blood Moon here, it's there.
Interestingly enough, that might not actually be game over for Justin. A couple bolts combines nicely with a couple of mountains.
Given that he can't counter the Blood Moon, his hand is about as good as you can ask for the situation he's in.
Agreed.
I'm curious to see if he tries to land it.
Oh man.
There it is.
There it is.
Another mooning. We've seen a lot of these on camera today.
If you're gonna sideboard it in, you might as well jam it on 3.
Right. Well, I'm very nostalgic about this card because back when all of my rich friends had a bunch of dual lands and I was broke, this was the
this was what you did.
This was the sand in the eyes or whatever. So
Justin pops his Scalding Tarn here. That puts an additional card in the graveyard for Nimble Mongoose at the cost of a life and thins his deck of a land. Scalding Tarn and Tropical Island about to become Scalding Tarn and Volcanic Island about to become functionally identical lands.
Yep.
In the context of Blood Moon, but you make do with what you got.
But Justin's certainly not out of this game. 2 bolts. If his Delver flips, then he's got quite a bit of pressure on the board.
Yeah. It will actually be very dangerous for Mike. Justin's run a little bad with Delver so far in the match. I'm sure he's hoping to improve.
Nope.
He does not. Not much to tank on here. We just have to draw that one. It's a Tarmogoyf. Man, that would be good if we could play it.
Yeah.
Rats.
2 points come across.
Mike's still not out of the woods. He does have a Bloodbraid Elf, and I'm not sure if he has a removal spell for the Delvers.
He has an Abrupt Decay.
He has an Abrupt Decay, okay. He's going to go ahead and cast his Bloodbraid Elf. Totally fine. If he hits a removal spell for the Delver, he'll be on Easy Street.
Justin's doesn't have any answer to this. And he reveals a Life from the Loam.
That was one of the less impressive reveals that he could have with Bloodbraid Elf.
That was the worst one in the deck. I guess him might have been. No, him would have been.
Thoughtseize would be pretty mediocre.
Yeah, Thoughtseize would be really bad.
Assuming it's still in the deck,
yeah.
I would probably have sideboarded it out.
But still fine, you know, you can hang back here. He's going to get in.
I don't like this attack. We're not really interested in a race when we've got the Blood Moon lock, right? Like, we're going to win this game if it goes a fair distance because we can actually cast our spells and our opponent can't.
Right.
So as long as we preserve a high life total and handle the few threats he can actually generate, which are literally only these 2. These are the last threats that Justin will ever be given in the game of Magic.
It's just those bolts, basically. That's what's left.
We have to fade him drawing lightning bolts and attacking us for lethal with the 2 creatures already in play. So I'd probably just leave the Bloodbraid Elf on D.
Yeah, if it trades with a bolt there, you're pretty ecstatic.
Yeah.
So Mike is contemplating attack at this point in the game. This is your only route to victory.
Yeah. Justin jams him in there. Mike perhaps a little heady with his race, although we saw this same kind of aggressive play from him in game 1.
Yes.
Could just be Mike's style, you know. He likes to play to the margins.
Get in people's kitchen.
And here he comes again.
Yeah, with no regard for human life, Mike sends his Bloodbraid Elf once again into the red zone.
Yeah, I think this time we'll have a little bit of discretion with Abrupt Decay aimed right at the Insectile Aberration. Mike, it appears, also has a Lightning Bolt in his hand, so he can close the distance pretty quick.
Justin mulling over his options, of which he has very close to 0.
He really wanted to draw a 3rd bolt this turn, not just because it would be lethal, but it would also enable him to get Threshold back.
Yeah, that's actually been a big deal in this damage race, is his inability to get the Threshold.
Yeah.
He's been 1 card short, in essence.
The entire time.
Right.
Had he played the Wasteland instead of the Scalding Tarn on the 1 turn, which is not strategically correct, I agree with his choice to play Scalding Tarn, he would have been able to Wasteland one of his own lands in response to the Blood Moon, and there you go.
Yeah.
That'd do it. That actually that play might have been enough to win the game, and it's not intuitive, but it's the sort of thing that actually comes up with Rug Delver relatively often. I've seen a number of Wastelands targeting players' own lands in order to get Threshold with Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah. And these are, these little corner case scenarios are all about playing Legacy proficiently, Yeah. Mike's still racing, and are we gonna? He actually drew Choke this turn, which I was really excited to see. The double squeeze.
Choke significantly less effective now than it might have been on turns prior.
I'm gonna get him one way or the other. Double Mongoose again crashing in. Mike down to 8.
Well, Justin has, it looks like another turn or 2 to peel the Lightning Bolt. Needs a 3rd one. He does not have the Chain Lightnings.
He's got 2. He's got 2 bolts in. He's got another bolt in hand.
Yeah.
Or rather, the 2 bolts still remaining in hand, and he's.
Maybe he can convince Mike to him.
He's just drawn Dark Confidant.
Dark Confidant is
gutsy.
A gutsy play. We've seen a lot of gutsy plays from Mike, though.
Yeah.
I want it to happen not because I want Mike to make a bad play, but because I just want a sweet sweat.
Yeah.
I just want it so good. Oh, man.
All right, passing the turn again.
Yeah, you pass the turn here. Your Bloodbraid Elf is already lethal with the Lightning Bolt in your hand. No need to get crazy. The Dark Confidant doesn't actually change your clock. Justin is going to have to not attack right here, or he'll be dead. But he is going to attack, and that will kill him because he doesn't know Mike has a Lightning Bolt.
He can't play around much here. I mean, he can still bolt the Bloodbraid Elf next turn if he's that worried about it. He can still bolt the Bloodbraid Elf next turn.
That's fair, I guess, but I don't think
you would have to have a pretty sick read here because he's played the game kind of the one way his cards allow him to.
I like just holding your Lightning Bolts here, but I think you go ahead and throw the Nimble Mongoose away to guarantee you get one more draw step, because you can't actually guarantee it if you don't block. Is Mike going to make him sweat it? He's just going to sit. Obviously, Force of Will is still a concern.
And there's the lethal bolt.
But there's the bolt. Okay.
And there it is, Mike McKay, 2 games to 0.
Yep.
Rewarded for his throwing caution to the wind style there, finishing off Justin the turn before he would have died on the way back, and it